Hey, GW coming to you live once again Sunday morning. Hey, listen, a couple reviews ago I mentioned Random Acts of Violence, a film done by Jay Baruchel. And I just wanted to tell you guys about that film. I rewatched it, and it was better than what I thought. And basically, in the film, Jay Baruchel and Jesse Williams and Jordana Brewster play comic book creators. They created a comic book called Slasher Man, based on a series of grisly crimes that have been committed a couple years earlier. In the film, they refer to the Slasher Man as the I-90 Killer. That was the original name for it. So these guys actually made a comic book based on what the I-90 Killer did, called Slasher Man. And the film has an interesting premise, and before we get into that, it actually is written or directed by Jay Baruchel, produced by Jay Baruchel. And for those of you who don't know Jay Baruchel, he was the sidekick in the movie The Goon with Seann William Scott. You guys should check that out. I believe he was in the sequel as well. Definitely give those films a whirl if you like Jay Baruchel. He's pretty awesome. But anyway, this film is pretty gory, I will tell you that. And when you read the reviews of this film, critics will tell you that either Jay Baruchel is a genius or the movie is just pure garbage, because it does what most horror films do, is just kill, kill, kill. I didn't look at it that way. I thought it was a pretty interesting movie. Different take on the road trip serial killer deal. But in the movie, like I said, Jay Baruchel, Jesse Williams, Jordana Brewster, they are comic book creators, and they are going to end the Slasher Man series. So to do that, they go on a little bit of a publicity tour. And basically, the first stop is a radio show. And right off the bat, they are confronted with the fact that, there's victims of the I-90 Killer that don't want to see the Slasher Man comic book even exist. So they are forced to deal with that. In the meantime, the I-90 Killer has never been caught. So he hasn't killed in a long time. So basically, when the Slasher Man comic comes out, you find this out at the very end of the film. But it kind of explains what goes on during the film. That the killer went into hiding and came back when the Slasher Man comic book hit the peak. Because the creator didn't have an ending, so we're going to give him one, basically. And what follows is a series of brutal crimes across middle America, and culminating in, well, not culminating, but, and also a series of eerie phone calls that sort of rock, the comic book creators deal. And the film is pretty gory, as I said. I mean, there's shootings, stabbings, impalements. It's pretty wicked, but for a first time effort, it is a very good shocker. You can watch it now on Shudder if you have a subscription, or you can buy the Blu-ray, either one. I was very impressed with this. When I watched it the second time, I picked up a couple of new things. The other thing critics say is that the writing in this film isn't really good. If they didn't like the film, then they will nitpick everything about it. The writing was fine. I mean, I've seen horror films way worse than this, guys. I mean, this is one of the top tier horror films, as in comparison to Night of the Lepus, which, if you guys haven't seen that, it's about giant rabbits. It's like, how frightening can giant rabbits be? And I know what you're thinking when I said that. The Monty Python scene in the Holy Grail where the rabbit just goes all over the place and eats people, and that's hilarious. But my point is that don't believe the critics. And Shudder picked this up exclusively, so definitely look for it. It is worth a watch, and it's pretty neat to see a original slasher film, not just a rehash of a serial killer on the loose. This actually takes, like I said, the road trip serial killer deal to a new level. And one of the things that I do like about the film that sets it apart from other horror films is that the murders. Normally, you turn on a Halloween film, you know you're going to get 50 stabbings, you know you're going to get a couple of gunshots. I mean, that just comes with the territory. But this one, the murders are elaborate. They're almost a morbid, macabre work of art. Kind of like the starting credits in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from, you know, 1970. So, 1974, I believe. Anyway, check out Random Acts of Violence. It is a pretty decent slasher. And the only qualm I have about it is it tries to be smart. It tries to fall into the tropes of the serial killer genre. And it tries a little too hard. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty cool movie. I dug it. And a very good first-time effort from director Jay Baruchel. So definitely check that out. And I just want to comment on my Jaws video, the Alex Kintner death pick. Yeah, I was sitting at home, guys, and I was eating lunch. And this dude commented that I look like Jeffrey Voorhees. And I thought that was pretty neat. And if I ever get famous, I might use that for something. I mean, that was pretty cool. That could be a stage name. So I wanted to thank that dude for telling me about it. And, you know, that is the one video, guys, that, you know, I bet you my whole YouTube career, no review is going to get that much, or garner that much a response. And I'm really proud that the picture is out there. And like I said, I wasn't alive when the film came out, but I can tell you this, that I know in the 40th anniversary edition, they talked about filming an alternate take. And they never were able to get it. Also, the producers and the directors thought that it would be too violent to show that. So they took pictures of this, you know, because the shark would only work half the time. At least that's what the DVD said. But I know in the book that the murder of Alex Kintner is described very, very vividly, very horribly. And it sets the tone. They wanted... It seems like Peter Benchley wanted that murder to become such the pinnacle or the turning point of the film, or the book, rather, that when this grisly attack happened in the ocean, everybody was mad. And so, yes, we're going to give them a reason to go kill the shark. There's also a little point, not relating to the scene or nothing, but in the 40th anniversary edition, there is a scene of Quint watching Moby Dick and laughing, which was never put in the theatrical version, and I don't know why. But it was one of those scenes that would have probably made a difference. It's like the scene in Goonies, where they showed it in the theater, where they stopped at the convenience store, and the map got singed at the end. You know, they showed that in the theater, and again, it's the whole thing where they used to do that and then change it on home video. They used to do that, guys. And I remember talking about that not too long ago. But, yeah, the scene is, you know, it would have been filmed today, it probably would have been filmed with CGI, and it probably would have looked pretty good if worked on. But the interesting thing is, like in 1975 when that came out, yes, they did not have the PG-13 rating. And some of the things were deemed too controversial or too excessively violent. Because you figure, if you would have released Jaws with an R rating, it would not have become the critical success that it would have been. Nowadays, you know, look at what The Meg did. The Meg actually has a sequel coming out, and it was a PG-13. It was a pretty intense PG-13. But that's the way movies were. And you can see the sign of the times, because back in 75, you couldn't show the Alex Kintner death. When Jaws 4 opened, they had a very, very brutal death at the end of that film where they ride the banana boat. A lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of vivid imagery of the shark crushing the girl's knee. And Even in that film, in the beginning of that film, dude gets his arm ripped off. So you can see how far we've come with the ratings board. Some things become so commonplace that they become the normal, you know. I remember when, I was doing research in my film course, college, and we were talking about Midnight Cowboy. Now, if you watch Midnight Cowboy, there is nothing explicit about that film today. The problem was the very nature of that film. That's what garnered an X rating, you know. And maybe one or two scenes that now seem tame in comparison. But my point is, back to Random Acts of Violence, the other thing that I do like about this film is the fact that the killer could have been in many more of a franchise movies if Jay Baruchel had timed it right. The killer, like Jason, wears a mask, but he wears a welding mask. He kills his victims any which way, and it was pretty neat to see, sort of the trademarks, But yeah, you can check that out on Shudder. And for the dude who said the Jason Voorhees or the Jeffrey Voorhees comment, I do like that, and I agree with you. And I agree with everybody who's commented on that Jaws picture that, I think that picture was not filmed because it was probably going to be used as a publicity shot. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, that they would actually do, they would take movie stars, they'd put them in a scene that was never even in the movie. They would take a picture or a small video for a teaser trailer, and that would be your publicity. I'll give you a perfect example. If you guys ever watched Cannibal the Musical, it's a Trey Parker, Matt Stone film done by Troma. You can go to their website and get it right now, or you can probably find it on YouTube. I don't know which. But they did a promotional trailer with a song that was never even in the movie. And why did they put that song in there? Because it was a promotional trailer. They wanted to get people interested. They wanted people to come check the movie out. And filmmakers do that, guys. So it's just a hint. But yeah, definitely check out Random Acts of Violence. And I do appreciate all the commentary about the Alex Kintner pick. And I am glad that I shot that. And I let you guys see that. And so far, there's been a lot of cool feedback about that. And, just like I said, if they would have shot that, it probably would have not been a critical commercial success because of the violence level. An R rating wouldn't have made the film a success. But a PG rating, you could reach everybody. Kids, adults, everything. So that's where they garnered in the, success factor, I believe, in that film. I also believe that there was problems with the shark. And then I think, too, that a lot of things ended up on the cutting room floor of that film because the book was a little bit more controversial than the movie. And I've said this before, that, they had Ellen Brody's affair. You've had, gory attacks. And even in Jaws, too, there were scenes that weren't shot, which I don't understand, because sometimes when I watch these movies on TV, the scenes that were never in the film in the theatrical run are in the TV. Maybe they do it for the extended time, or maybe they buy TV time, and then they just say, okay, throw that scene in, because we need another 15 seconds of stuff, And maybe that's what happens, guys. But anyway, definitely check out Random Acts of Violence. If you have a Shudder subscription, I suggest you go check it out and tell me what you think about the film, because I really liked it. First time effort, and I've learned not to believe critics. So, and next week we'll try to review the Vince Vaughn new Vince Vaughn film Freaky, which he swaps places with a teenage girl. Should be interesting, to say the least. It's GW. Catch you next week.